Right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would like to acknowledge that the Municipal Students Union operates on the traditional territory of the Mutual Anishinaabe and Anishinaabe peoples. Regrets this evening are from Director Boomket, Director Laheka, and then Director St. George. And Director Nakashatra is absent. And does anyone have any conflicts of interest to declare? All right, we can move on to the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion that the Board of Directors adopt the agenda as presented? Motion by Director Solo, seconded by Director Rubinoff. All right, is there any discussion on the matter? We can move into voting. All those opposed? All those abstaining? And all those in favor? Vote passes 0-0 to 8. Moving on to the adoption of the meeting minutes from October 21st, 2024. Can I get a motion that the Board of Directors approve the October 21st, 2024 meeting minutes? Motion by Director Ijom, seconded by Director Type. Is there any discussion on the matter? I would just like to say you're doing a great job as Secretary, so thank you so much. Keep up the great work. All right, we can move on to voting. All those opposed, all those abstaining, and all those in favor. And vote passes 0-0 to 8. All right, and now we have the Dean of Students presentation. Thank you, Adam, for coming to this meeting.
No problem.
We all look forward to hearing what you present.
Sure. Yeah, do we want to put the power? Oh, perfect. Good. Yeah, so hello, everyone. My name's Adam Lawrence. I work in the Dean of Students office. And I'm here, after talking with Dr. Gabby or Chair Dr. Gabby. I think there were some things identified that we were looking for some presentations about. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Milton, and we can give a feel and a vibe for where Milton's at. A little bit about student housing, and then a little bit about some wellness initiative stuff. And then again, I'm here if that's okay to answer any questions people have. Just of course, but I think when I've come here in the past, it's just been seems to be an open avenue to talk. So or ask questions, so I'm more than happy to talk. So my voice is not. Okay, Ian, next slide. Are you the slide? Ian? My son's name's also Ian, so I feel like I'm yelling at him. So yeah, we'll go to the next slide. So a little bit about, or the next one. So if you get, I'll run through this a little bit. So as you know, this past September, we opened up a campus in Milton. And it's been a lot of years of planning and lots of people within the student union, the GSA, the university have been a part of this planning for years. We're really like 10 years plus. And it's interesting when I talk about Milton. So as we were going through the planning for Milton, we of course wanted to take what is that foundation of what it means to be a Laurier campus, right? Strong student engagement, strong student leadership, lots of opportunities, a place where students can come. We hear a lot about community and home and feeling. So how do we create this environment? And it was interesting as we were going down this path, a lot of people, outside people, internal people, kept saying, well, are students even going to want to be there? Like it's a commuter campus, like, are they just going to want to drive to campus, do their class and leave? And we started to second guess ourselves a little bit. Like Phil and I were talking about this kind of last year. We're like, are students going to want to just drive to Milton, go to class, get in their car and leave? So we were a little worried when campus started. So the way campus works is that it's really open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, it's closed. And students, psychology students, I believe it could be vice versa. Psychology students take their classes mostly Monday, Wednesday, computer science, Tuesday, Thursday. And we were a little nervous that what's that feel going to be like? Is everyone going to get to meet each other? What's the vibe? Well, so we opened up on the Thursday of orientation week, first class, and 90% of the students showed up, even if they didn't have class that day. Showed up, met people. The student success team and the student union had all these wonderful things planned throughout the day and student engagement. And since then, that's been the feel. Is that people are showing up, they're coming every day, they're meeting people, they're hanging out. Lots of Uber Eats people coming to the front of the building or DoorDash people coming to the front. And it really does feel like our campus. What we've built on the Milton campus is we've taken some of the things we've learned from our Waterloo campus in Brantford. We do have in-person appointments, and you'll see there. We do have wellness and student success and career and ICT that help us. People there kind of on a daily or once a week basis. But we also have lots of virtual appointments, and students do that coming in, that they have the opportunity to book virtual appointments. So I would say our student care team, our student wellness center, if the counselor's not there, Siobhan's not there, they are booking those virtual appointments, and we have 4 or 5 virtual rooms where students can do that. But outside of that, we're still trying to get more and more people there so that we can prepare for what that program is. So we've been pretty happy. We are doing a complete assessment, so we're only in first term. So everyone's pretty excited. There's lots of activities going on. Our student experience teams there. We are looking to build on that. There's a food services area. Phil, help me out here. There's a restaurant opening up there.
Yeah, a little cafe is Hungry Goose.
Hungry Goose. So a little cafe starting, or I believe it's already started. So building that small capacity with the 70 to 80 students that are there to figure out what that looks like in those next years. When we talk about student engagement, which was our big thing, so with the support of the student union and the GSA, we have 2 staff members that really focus on student experience. So we have a student affairs coordinator. That person, Alicia, is really responsible for kind of making sure, or really making sure that all of the different services for student affairs is connected to the campus. And then we have a student experience coordinator. So it's a 1-year role. And we created that role because our focus here, all of you as upper year students, we really have a peer-to-peer model, right? So upper year students, as they get into 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year, often have jobs or volunteer responsibilities on campus, and then they support all other students. Well, on this campus, we didn't have any other students, we only had first year students. So we created this role to really act like the peer when it comes to programming, is the one facilitating, the pumpkin carving and all the different events that are happening. And we're gonna see how that role evolves over time. In a perfect world, as students progress through, they become the leaders to other students. But that's where we're at. And then we do have the student experiences department has started a student council. We are calling a student council, very high school, a little more high schoolish, but there's 8 students on there, and they're the ones that are helping to build programming and do activities throughout the. So that's where we are with Milton. You may have heard, so there is lots of plan for growth in Milton, so they're looking at new program development. They are starting rather quickly on. So if you've been there, half the building. So first of all, has anyone been there? Online? Yeah, you guys. It's actually, the address is 555 Industrial Drive. So it seems like an industrial area. When you get there, it's quite beautiful. So it's a beautiful building, very Laurierized. And then as you get to the back part, it's only half a building. The back part's going to be renovated to a bigger classroom, more student space. So it's a very exciting time in Milton, and we see that same excitement as we in Brantford, as we continue to develop one market, we continue to do more programs here. It's just that exciting. So do you want me to stop now if anyone has any questions?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Yep.
I see you were talking about still assessing the needs of the student. Through that, is that looking like?
Yeah. Great question. So our student success team has been working on 2 things. So we started, so we're doing a research ethics approval to look at 2 things. One, how is the academic pathways and the academic space, how's that conducive to students? So right now, if you imagine, so really there's a room like this, it's the classroom, and then right outside the classroom is a student space. So it's very vibrant. So we're trying to get some feedback of what that looks like, how's the space look like? And then we're doing assessment about basically collecting data about what students want to do. What do they want to see? Do they want the building to be open on weekends? Do they want it to be open on Friday? So really trying to get an idea, because we started with a very, this is the box of what Laurier Brantford's going to be. And now the students are there, we need them to dictate what we do. We actually did this in Brantford when we first opened one market. We just put a whiteboard in this space, and it basically said, what do you want to see in this space? Adam Bloomfield did it, who works there, and I was like, this isn't gonna work. And after like a week, it was full of like, we need to have this access, we need to have a kitchen, we need to have it was kind of cool. So we're doing that same thing, but meeting with students and having more conversation, because there's fewer. But that's our needs assessment. So our hope is that, and we can come to the board and talk, but our hope is to get kind of a package of what do students actually want and then make it happen. There's only so many like old people that can dictate what's going on campus, so we really need that feel for those.
For sure, thank you.
Also, just on that, also how are students getting there, right? So it's a commuter campus, not everyone has a car. And we thought that it'd be a lot of Milton students and, but it's not the case. There's lots of people coming from different areas. So what does transit look like? What does housing look like, which we'll get into? And how does that all play out in that students?
Yeah, I kind of was just curious, is there public transportation?
Yeah, Phil, can you help me with that a little bit?
The answer is sort of. So basically, in January, Conestoga College opened up their 2 campuses that are located in Milton as well. And as you have all read in the news, Conestoga College has money. And so they basically bought a Conestoga College bus route. And we have a really excellent partnership with the college. Adam and I and a few others have kind of fostered that relationship in Brantford and kind of gently elbowed them in the ribs and said, hey, can you help us out? So there is a bus route that includes the Laurier campus. Will it become more vibrant as the Milton campus becomes more vibrant? Almost assuredly, the answer to that would be yes. There's also, according to Milton Transit, a very successful on-demand bus service that's accessible for students, but I'm not entirely sure what the results of that have been because it's probably too early to gauge. The weather, as you know, has been pretty nice for the last couple of months. It won't be really until the weather starts to turn a little bit towards the south in order to really get a gauge of how students can engage with what their transit opportunities are.
Just want, first of all, thank you so much for coming. And wondering if you could touch a little bit about what it looks like planning on building the permanent campus, what that looks like in sizing. You're starting with 78 students.
Yeah.
What's the goal for?
That is a good question. Those are questions, answers I don't have.
Okay.
That is something that we've been asking. So the initial plan in all of our documents is that the new campus, the new building by the velodrome, and if you ever drive by, there's a huge sign that says like, what does it say, home of the Laurier campus. 2028 was that day or that time. We're very close to 2028 and building big buildings does not take, it takes a long time, right? So I'm not entirely sure that answer. I think that, as we're looking at the news, we can see that there's lots of precarious discussions around new campuses and, Seneca closing a couple of campuses, so I think that there's questions around what does that look like and what does our growth potential look like when we talk about students and corridor modeling. So those are great questions. I think that when we talk about further conversations, as we get more information, we can definitely share that. Laurier is a big part of that education village in Milton. What that looks like, I'm not sure.
You were talking about how you're making Milton, you're bringing Laurier to Milton. Something about Laurier to me that makes it a community is its clubs, activities, sports. Is it too early for that in Milton? Is there a plan for it?
Perfect. That's exactly what the Laurier community is, right? So we wanted to, so Bree, who's our student experience coordinator, this is what that student council is to try to bring that first little bit to that. And with 70 students, this is kind of like the club that's going to bring everyone together. But yeah, so everything. So we're doing like some very passive low impact. So there's like a yoga day, a yoga night. There's lots of events happening between classes. That's when the programming is, so pizza and whatnot. It's very much that community, kind of the small C community building, like how can we bring people together? But the next iteration is going to be, what's that next club look like? And are we going to have clubs? So there's a few people that have wanted to start, like there's some community groups that want to start bringing clubs in, and we're trying to be a little hesitant around what the club structure looks like, working with Jason to figure out how we would manage that, what the booking would be, what are they doing after hours, all those things. But yeah, you're right. How do we get more people engaged in the things that they're passionate about?
So I would like to add on that. Ben and I went down and met with the leadership council about a month ago. And some of the stuff that we agreed that we would try to help them communicate was getting club stuff connected to the faculty associations that exist on this campus. So it's computer science and psychology. Those have really great student clubs associated with them. So how do we connect Milton students to those associations to see if they can kind of collaborate on something together? So that's something that we're working on. On the flip side of that, one of the big things that they told us that they're looking for is that connection to an athletics and recreation type of program, which is obviously very difficult given the space that we have. So we've been working with Kate McRae and her team to try and figure out what do we do for the students in Milton, because they are paying for that privilege, so we should be all up in Kate's stuff to make sure that something's implemented for that, so it is work in progress.
Yeah, so that was our biggest kind of challenge was the athletics and recreation. So we have a nurse practitioner and a counselor that go there, we have a first aid room, so there's lots of support. And then connections to the community around wellness and mental wellness, but it was that athletic piece that we're trying to figure out. What were the partnerships in the community, and we couldn't find something that was beneficial for partners.
So I guess you feel like kind of like how Brantford has like the YMCA, that doesn't really.
No, the velodrome is the place,
Which
which is why we're building beside there, but it is a bit, just the location of the distance was.
Can you kind of just, I don't, like, I knew that you guys were doing the velodrome, but I just wasn't like really sure what exactly was gonna go in it. Do you?
Yeah, so again, we don't really have an answer, but the velodrome's already built, it's like huge, it's got like a big basketball court, is where they do all the biking.
Okay.
The Laurier property where the village go is right by the velodrome. So if you ever come to the Milton campus, you can just kind of, what would you say, it's 10 minutes away, kind of.
Full disclosure, I've never actually.
Oh, yeah, 10 minutes away, you can't really walk there, but you can drive there, but yeah, Gabby, it's kind of a perfect location for this education village, it's beautiful, the apartments right behind, it's lovely. But that is the dream as we get to that.
Does anyone else have questions online? You guys can put them in the chat here if you want. Yeah, I don't see anything, so I was also just curious, how do you think like growth at Brantford might change, like depending on now that we've opened Milton up, like do you think that Brantford's gonna be like affected by it, even just like people joining psychology and computer science at Waterloo, how do you think like it?
Very good question. So I think as people may or may not know, so I was leading students in Brantford for 8 years. So 2 years here, 8 years Brantford and then back here. I love the Brantford campus. I think the Brantford campus is beautiful, great programs, excellent faculty, good facilities. I think that as a whole, so my answer that I would give is we have to look at all of our campus as a whole and what's best for all the campuses. So so Brantford has wonderful programs and we know what programs are exciting and wonderful and people go in. If they're not working, we need to look at what's that. So years ago, we opened up a criminology minor here in Waterloo because so many students want to take criminology. It didn't affect criminology in Brantford. There's huge growth. That's what we need to be looking at. So we know that computer science was getting huge here. So how does that then impact other things? So I really try to take the approach that what's best for the entire Laurier campus, and then what's best for students. How can we build strong communities, academic programs at all of our campuses? So I think as we get into, Brantford we're seeing lots of success in lots of programs. What does that growth look like? I've said this to Phil numerous times, how do we continue to develop one market as a place for students to gather and to be? And then what do those programs look like? Should we be bringing certain programs into one market to really work with each other? What's that synergy look like? That's how we build the campus. And, here, like over the years, we've built, Bridger Academic and the science building, they're places where we've really brought those groups together. That's the iteration. That's what I want to see in Milton is. It's not about taking programs from other campuses. It's about what does that growth look like that's beneficial to the Halton region and the students that are doing. While making sure that Brantford and Waterloo are very successful.
Sorry, just another question. What steps have or will Laurier take to not necessarily like show the validity of the campus, but like parents and students out of high school may feel more hesitant to coming to a smaller campus than the larger Waterloo campus. So what is ways that Laurier is showing and trying to build just the program and show that
So this is a good question.
Campus.
Our recruitment officers may have a different feel than me. So I'm not kind of speed tape. I think
Sorry.
that's a very, sort of, what do you think?
Danny.
So I think that's an awesome question. I think that, so when I go to open house, it's just the honesty, right? Like, Milton is a small campus. It's a commuter campus. It's just growing, it's building. I think we need to be honest about what our campuses are like. The Brantford campus is spread out, 16, 18 buildings over a whole downtown. But what we should be sharing is that at every place, it's the same feel, right? Like our focus is on the student experience, our focus is on building community with the clubs and the athletic. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we got into the biggest partnership with the YMCA, right? To build that awesome building that houses all these great athletic programs. I went to the Milton Open House, we're pretty honest, like, this is what it is, this is the growth, it's small, it's tiny, it's intimate. It's not open on Fridays, like, we're being honest. But I think people love the programs and the reputation that a lot of our alumni have about Laurier is that, hey, I had a great time here. I want my cousins and my kids and people to go here. That's the feel for Milton. And honestly, when you get a chance to go there, you'll feel the same. There's a lot of purple and gold in Milton, like a lot, more than you could imagine. But it's got that feel, right? It's got that Laurier. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, great.
What about your experience working with Brantford has kind of informed how you're taking over like Milton? Like, is there stuff that you've learned from that you're?
That is the best question. So that's how we approach Milton, right? So yeah, that question about what did we learn? So Brantford, it was small, 39 people and over 25 years has kind of grown. But yeah, we've taken a lot of so Jess Calvary, if you ever get a chance to meet her, so she really developed our commuter program for student experience, looking at how we, build that community, lockers, making sure that people have a place to spend the whole day. That's really what we took. And it was really, as we've been going through this, we've involved Phil a lot and Ben and previous presidents, to really get that idea of what do students want and how do we build an environment where people can come and park, be there the whole day, there's food and water available. Like, probably one of the best stories about this is that we've been fighting for a water fountain in Milton since the day we saw the space. And everyone's like, no, I don't know if we need a water fountain, this and that. And we're like, we know that when students step in at 8:30 to class, they're gonna drink a lot of water. That's what they want, free water as you drink your water. Yeah, but that's that feel, right? That's that, how are we listening to the people around us and the people that have done this to make it feel that way? So we've taken that commuter approach. We've really looked at, so one thing we needed to work on was make sure the Wi-Fi could be there for the whole day. You have the 4 devices. What does parking look like? How are people getting food? What's the opportunity for, but there's an ICT person there. We've ping pongers, making sure, there's ICT support, so ICT support there the whole day. We know that people need access to wellness supports and counseling, so that was really that whole field that we wanted to make sure, but that's what we learned from Brantford, and I love the Brantford campus, and I think it's wonderful. The staff there are awesome. We also knew that hiring the right people was going to be important, and I think we've hired there's 3 people that work there that are wonderful in Milton, so that's been that flair. But that's a great question, and that's how we approached the planning for Milton, was what has worked well in Brantford, what has worked well in Waterloo, how can we optimize? Yeah,
I should have a follow-up. Is parking free at Milton?
it is, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I don't know, so that's a wonderful question about what that looks like in the future, but yes, it's a big parking lot, so it is free parking. I don't know how that's gonna play out in years, but it is a big draw.
It's good for the students.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's really no place, if there was a paid parking lot, there's even no place to kind of hang out, like park on a side street.
No, yeah, exactly.
Ian. Oh,
Is there the question so much? Okay, is that what the chat is? Okay. Yeah, Dr. Terry?
So there have been talks of the business technology management program moving to the Milton campus next year. What does that look like for the current students that are in first, second, third year in Brantford currently? And can you speak to that, whether that is going to be implemented or is still in talks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have heard about that. So there has been, I think, some movement, is that the correct term? Movement towards BTM, moving towards Milton. I believe it still has to go to Senate for approval, and I think the Senate meeting is in November. I'm not entirely sure what that means. So there's no question that if you're a current student in the program, I imagine, I'm looking at Ian and Phil there, you have to finish the program. in Brantford. Yeah.
The
So,
best information I have, which, debatable how good it is that if they do move it, they'll move a first year class into Milton and
Okay.
upper year students won't be just, like, they won't have to get up and leave Brantford. They can finish their education in Brantford, and then by the time that education group cycles out,
yeah,
that Milton will be full-time BTM.
okay. Yeah, so that's the answer. So yeah, I'm not always in tune with the academic side, so I think that's good that Phil had that.
What I might recommend, if that's something that you're concerned about and want better answers for, we can find out who your student senators are, and we can communicate with them and ask those questions to make sure that they're raised at center.
I know some of them are. There are a couple of them.
I could also reach out to the VPA's office and have a follow-up and get a small briefing for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else have any more questions about Milton? Yeah.
Something I like that Lorraine does to keep the different campuses connected, like Brantford and Waterloo, is like when there's orientation, they make sure they have the same event, or like when a new club is starting, they have members from like Waterloo and Brantford. I'm presuming the same plan will be for the Milton
Yeah.
campus to keep the same energy, that no matter which campus you're on, you're experiencing the same thing as the other campuses.
Oh, yeah, so in all honesty, Jason, everyone knows Jason, we wanted to plan lots of things for that Milton orientation. We were only given kind of the one day because I think people were still thinking like, students really are they gonna want all of this stuff? And we quickly learned that they did. So that's been how we changed this to say, yes, now, how are we connecting the campuses? They're a lot more alike than some people presumed. So you're right, that feel and getting student leaders that are here in Brantford to work with the student leaders in Milton. Great, should I get to housing? I think one of the auditors coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, can I go on to the next?
Yeah.
Okay, so housing. So I will talk at kind of an operational level. So the student, the housing portfolio, kind of that transitional housing that we've worked with has moved to our off-campus, the Locust program portfolio. And we continue to do programs, the lease it or lose it. We are working with residents a little bit earlier now to get students thinking about what it means to lease or to rent or to get a place in both of our communities, Brantford and Waterloo at this time. We are aware that we're seeing more rental scams. I think that's the term, we're seeing more of our students coming forward saying, I've been scammed of my money. We've been working especially with our international office or international student support office for some rental scams. We are seeing, and this was said at Town and Gown, we're seeing more housing available. It's not a housing shortage or a housing problem, it's an affordability problem. So we are seeing that quite a bit. I actually have it on my list for when I get the opportunity to meet with USA on, I think Friday this week or next week, about this affordability challenge. When we talk to our colleagues at other institutions, we are fairly lucky in Waterloo, first of all, that we have the LRT and the bus pass and whatnot, and students are sharing with us that they are living maybe closer into Kitchener or a little bit farther, kind of close to the LRT, being able to take the LRT to campus, things like that. So they are able to maybe access some more inexpensive rentals, but not by a lot. Like, it is expensive to live in Kitchener-Waterloo. There's no question. Phil and I were talking about the group here about the olden days. And in the old days, you could live a little bit farther away from the university core, and sometimes your rent would drop like a third, a half. Now, if you want to live in Kitchener, it's pretty much the same as living in Waterloo. So we are seeing more students coming to us to access the emergency, those living in Holland Brown Emergency Fund, which does help support students that are in crisis. We're seeing more people come forward because they can't afford their rent. And their rent is, well, you don't know your students, 800 is lucky, 1200 is average, is lucky, 1800 is sometimes the average for some people. So, we are a bit at our, yeah, we're a bit at our wits' end here, and we're always happy to have discussions. One thing I did want to mention, with our international students, we have been working, so our international students come, they clear all the visa things, they have money, they get their permits, and then they get here and they can't find housing. So we've been working with a company called Settle In Locations. It's a Laurier grad that does help our students find housing, so that's been good for, and when we talk about housing, like, look at what their needs are, where are they working, what does that look like, so it has been helpful. There are groups like that. It's just hard to do for 21,000 students. So we are back to brainstorming what it means as Laurier to help students when it comes to housing, finding housing, all those aspects. So this is actually one thing, I was like, I'm open to discussion around this. This is a hot topic that doesn't seem to have a lot of answers.
No, exactly.
And we're growing more and more concerned that there are no mechanisms to control, well, there are, let me backtrack. That some landlords utilize different ways to keep increasing rent, and it's becoming more and more unaffordable for students who are, as you all know, your students, right? I always say this time, it's harder to be a student now than ever before. High demands on being engaged, getting jobs, not engaged to be married, but being engaged on campus, studies, all those things. It's difficult, and when we add the rising cost every year of rent, it becomes more stressful. So we're aware of that. There is a housing subcommittee through Town and Gown that I think Ben may sit on, or someone may sit on. Ian sits on.
Gabrielle.
Okay, yeah. So I know there's been some discussions there, but this is something that I believe that our colleagues at USA should be directly involved in as the voice of students, because this is a high cost. And if you have to pay rent, it's taking money away from food, from social time, engagement, all those things. So I do worry about that.
How do you see like the issue in Brantford as well? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, there's definitely the issues. It's very similar in Brantford. I think our latest stats were it's a little bit. The average is a little bit lower in Brantford, and there is some more housing, but where people want to live, and landlords know this, right? So in Waterloo, in Brantford, if there's a place that's popular with students, the rent goes up. So there's no question that. It's not supply and demand, because there's lots of supply, it's just people are raising costs, and then, we're hearing a lot too, so people are renting apartments by the room, and if someone leaves partway through, they're just increasing that rent, because they can. And then everyone's paying different amounts, and it becomes inequitable and more challenging across the board. So we do worry about how this is impacting our students' well-being and mental health, and just the overall cost, right? Like if you are working in the summertime, you're taking time off, you're recuperating, you're spending time with family, and then, 100% of your money needs to go towards tuition, where are you getting the money?
You mentioned specifically with the international students, is something like the student council on Milton campus able to provide any resources or any place to help them with that?
Yeah. So when I talk to there's not a real housing problem for our Milton students with the general group. A majority of them are living at home and kind of commuting too. So there hasn't been a big demand there. Our international students here have experienced some challenges for sure. So, being told to pay first and last month's rent and then meet a person at a house and the house doesn't exist. Like that's really what so Peter Donahue and his team have been working to educate students when they come. So, don't give any money up front, work with our international student support team if you're gonna do housing. So we're trying to get to that point. But it's a challenge.
Oh no, I was just gonna add to, I've lived in my apartment for 3 years and I'm paying 800, but the people that are now moving in, living with me, they're paying 1,300.
Yeah, so there's one house over here that still only charges $400 a room. That's correct. And the places around them are charging $2,100. So this is this is the disparity, right? So, I think this is the challenge, and I worry about, so we just talked about the field, right? We want people to be here, to come here. Well, who has $1,800 to spend on a room, right? So you're gonna commute, you might not get that same feel, you know, what does that look like for your time here? That's my concern. But then how do we as an institution and as students, how do we advocate to our provincial government who need to know that this is too much?
Yeah, I think we're just feel like we can't solve the problem ourselves.
Yeah,
It's just-
but a collection of students can always make a change, right? The student voice can always make a change. Now, how does that work with student housing? Maybe you could, but
Just for some context, Vivian Chin, who was the VP of Government and Stakeholder Relations last year, was also president. And USO was active, there were partisan roundtables with the province, so there has been lots of student advocacy. It's just the developers are letting out.
but that's why you can't stop the conversation, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Does anyone online have any questions?
There's one in the chat, I think we looked in there. I see a little red bubble next to the chat.
Yeah.
It says no questions, everything good so far.
Oh, perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I know we're almost running out of time, so I'll talk about wellness. So there's lots of things up there, all the wellness. First of all, I want to thank the student union, everyone. Wellness is such a priority on campus, and I really think that students feel this, right? Like they feel Thrive Week today, you know, the pancake, like people feel the amount of effort that all of our students leaders put into taking care of each other. So that's the first thing. The student union's commitment to things like food insecurity, making sure our wellness centers are feeling supported, making sure that we're embedding, you know, emergency bursaries, legal care, things across the board. Those are things that help with student wellness. Making sure that we're taking care of our students is key. So there's lots of things I put up there. You know, we have flu clinics, we have all the operational things. Right now, when I saw flu clinics, you know, there was a measles outbreak, so we're making sure that people are educated about measles. All those things are being done. Some of the really cool things that we're doing, so we have taken all of our counselors and embedded them into different faculties. So our counselors last year basically said, look, I keep dealing with you know, lab students and I'm helping them, and we have liberal arts students. How do we get to where they are so we don't have to come to the level? So 2 days a week, we've embedded counseling across campus, in athletics, international, all the different faculties, in Brantford and human and social sciences. So really trying to get counseling where students are. We are transitioning on our Brantford campus to a nurse practitioner model. So the Wellness Center has a nurse practitioner and then 2 doctors. We feel the nurse practitioner gives us a little more opportunity to have someone in the space to kind of meet with students as soon as they come in, and also transition to the Milton campus 1 day a week to offer that support. And then our biggest student wellness initiative, so the government issued Bill 166 a couple months ago. Does everyone know what Bill 166 is? The most fun bill ever. So it says 3 things. It says 1, all universities have to have a mental health policy. All universities have to have an anti-racism policy, and then the universities need to be very clear about how much students have to spend at all times. So your new course syllabus in September is going to have every cost associated with that class listed there. Which is good. Is there any music students here? I don't know how they're going to put when you need to have a violin for a class, because I think so. But we'll see what that looks like. So the mental health policy, we just wrote it, so we're gonna have a framework. We've written a framework. That framework is gonna be put online. It's basically a collection of all the different wellness, mental wellness things that are available, and then we're gonna transition that into a policy, which we'll share with this. So that's really been our focus, is to start to tell that story of what wellness is. If anyone follows Student Life at Laurier, does everyone follow Student Life at Laurier? Yeah. The co-op students have been awesome about really talking about wellness and really making that wellness a priority this term. And that's been good because we do want to share all the great things that are happening. Lots of students are showing up. I didn't realize how many students like making tote bags or crafting tote bags on all of our campuses. Yeah, it seems to be the thing.
It's the flower pots.
Yeah,
Pink
so,
flower
yeah,
pots.
flower pots,
Yeah.
pumpkin carving, like pumpkin carving in Brantford was awesome. So really trying to build that capacity of how do we bring students together? How do we make sure they're feeling well? And how do we really address some of the things we're hearing about loneliness, isolation, students wanting to make time? How do we build that structure? That's it.
That's great, thank you so much for sharing all that, yes, I mean, like, I call a lot of the stuff that I know, like, student affairs and student union, thank you so much for experience.
Yeah, it's a great partnership, student affairs and student union, great partnership. So as just a follow-up, so I'll follow up with some ETN information and then share it with you.
Great, yeah, and I'll share it, yeah, I think the auditor.
Oh.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming.
Did you run out?
Yeah, sure.
Good night.
Um,
So best step forward would be to kind of take the presentation, let's ask questions while we can. And then maybe the 7 of us or 7 of you that are here can make a recommendation to next week's board. And we can bring Chris back next week to kind of, if there are any follow-up questions from those that are not present.
Yeah, I guess we'll see if people join, but. Phil, do you want to be here for this or?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be here, yep. You can start without me, literally, it'll be Tuesday.
Okay.
Fair enough, not literally Tuesday.
There's. All right, well, I guess, Chris, you can get started. We don't have a quorum right now, so we're probably going to have to just hear the presentation, listen to, or ask questions, and then we'll have to make a recommendation for the meeting in 2 weeks. That the board then will be a forum, then we'll, like approve the audit statements. So whenever you're ready to go.
Sure. So for those of you that are new to the board, every year after the fiscal year ends, we have our financial results for that year audited by an external audit firm. We've worked with KPMG for a number of years now who perform that audit for us and work closely with us in a partnership to produce the financial results that we have tonight. So at this meeting, I always turn it over to the auditors at this point to actually present on the financial results that have been prepared. And so online with us tonight is Sarah Clayton from KPMG. So I'll turn it over to Sarah, and she was the lead auditor for this year's report. So I'll turn it over to Sarah to take us through the report. So go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks, Chris. So Matt should be joining us at some point. He did let me know that he was running a little bit late, so I'll kind of get started with the financial statements, and then hopefully Matt will be around to kind of speak to the audit results from that standpoint. So I will go ahead and share my screen just so we can all look at the financial statements together. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay, perfect. So like Chris said, I will walk us through the financial statements and just highlight any significant changes and just provide some backgrounds in terms of if you've never looked at the Students' Union's financial statements before, just to kind of give some context as we go through them. If there are any questions as we go through, please feel free to stop me and I can kind of answer them as we go, or we can wait until I'm through the financial statements and then we can kind of go through questions then. So like Chris had mentioned, I am the senior manager on the Wilfrid Laurier Students' Union. I've been involved for quite a few. I think this is either my second or my third year, but it's always a great audit to work with Chris and his team along with. So the first thing I'm just going to highlight is we have our independent auditors report. So essentially at a high level, this states that we've performed the audit and we basically believe that the financial statements are fairly presented and there's no significant issue that's kind of come up as we perform the audit that we want to bring to the attention of the board. So I'm just going to quickly skim through this and move ahead to the statement of the financial position. So the statement of the financial position is basically what is more commonly referred to as our balance sheet. So it does outline kind of the assets that the Students' Union owns, but I will kind of speak to a few changes here. So you'll see that, short-term investments this year have gone up by about $500,000. So the short-term investments are all GICs. So the Students' Union has invested about $500,000 more this year in GICs. You'll see kind of a big uptick in the due from Wilfrid Laurier University, up from $690 in prior year to about $1.3 in the current year. I think this is attributed to multiple different reasons. It appears like there's some more owing from Wilf's, I think just a general increase in kind of the Wilfrid Laurier kind of central account that we have within the trial balance, probably just due to some more activity and kind of timing of payments from that standpoint. And then the last item I'm just going to highlight on the statement of financial positions is just restricted cash. So we've kind of seen a big increase from prior year. What this restricted cash basically relates to is that the Students' Union have kind of set aside funds for the health and dental plan that's provided to students. So in a case where a student makes a claim against this plan and the Students' Union has to pay that claim, we just want to make sure that there's sufficient funds kind of set aside in the event that maybe the claims being made, so the cash outflows that have to go out of the organization, are kind of sufficiently set aside so that the Students' Union can make those payments as those come due. The next page just speaks to kind of the liabilities and the fund balances that the Students' Union has. Again, just highlighting a few key differences here. The demand note from Wilfrid Laurier University was paid off in full this year, so you'll see kind of that zero balance here. We kind of continue to see a decrease over the past few years in long-term debt. It's always great to kind of see when an organization is continually paying down their long-term debt. Higher debt obviously increases the amount of borrowing costs and kind of ties up cash flows as well. So in note 6 of the financial statements, we kind of spell out when those arrangements are due. I think one's due 2025, 2026, and 2027. So some of those debts will become due where the Students' Union will have to settle those debts. The next page is our statement of operations. This is basically just our income statement. There are some supporting schedules that I'll show and I'll speak to in a second, just the Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 that kind of spell out those revenue and expenses in a little bit more detail to kind of see what's driving those figures. But do just want to highlight that obviously the Students' Union has a very healthy surplus this year of $2.6 million. So, when considering kind of future planning, where does it make sense to kind of spend or invest some of that surplus in future years to kind of further support the Students' Union and kind of their goals as an organization. And then just kind of tying back to that comment on debt, you'll see here that as the debt kind of continues to decrease, your interest that you're paying on those debt balances will also continue to decrease. The statement of changes in fund balances is basically kind of those cumulative surpluses and how it's kind of been earmarked or allocated to certain funds. So you'll see here, I kind of spoke to that health plan contingency fund that's kind of set up to pay out some of those claims as students make claims for that health plan. There's a capital reserve fund, an essential reserve fund, and kind of that unrestricted fund. So management kind of makes decisions on how they want to kind of allocate the surpluses to these funds. I'm not going to necessarily go in detail over kind of the changes in the cash flow. There's a lot of kind of moving pieces here, and we can kind of see that cash only changed by about $260,000 during the year. But it pretty much, the statement just kind of provides some guidance on what's kind of driving that change in cash throughout the year. Skipping ahead, we just have some of our policies that the organization has, no significant changes from prior year there. I kind of spoke to the short-term investments, but this just kind of shows what those GICs look like when they're maturing and what kind of interest rates we've settled with. We have the property, plant, and equipment schedule, so just kind of breaking down that value in terms of, what are those different assets, the building, vehicles, leasehold improvements, constructions in progress, things like that. And then this schedule kind of speaks to the long-term debt that I was speaking to earlier. So you'll see a few of these loans are coming due over the next few years, and we've broken down kind of those principal repayments. So just kind of being aware of what's kind of coming down the pipeline in terms of repayments for the long-term debt. Skipping ahead as well. And then I did kind of speak to this a little bit earlier, but Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 pretty much just kind of breaks down those revenue figures into kind of certain departments or groupings to kind of provide some additional insight into, where those revenue figures are coming from. I wasn't planning on kind of speaking to these in detail, but like I said, you can kind of see, what is health and dental, what's driven by WILS, the UDES, things like that. And then Schedule 2 kind of does a corresponding breakdown except from an expense standpoint. So kind of those outflows that are breaking down kind of the inflows and the outflows within the organization by department. And then the last one is just kind of on a net basis. So are those departments in a positive position? So kind of earning essentially net income, or if they're kind of in a deficit position. So the cash outflows are greater than the cash inflows. So maybe I'll kind of pause there to see if we have any questions on the financial statements. I know I did a quick run through, but if there's any questions or comments from that standpoint.
I have a more general, broad question. What do you see as an outside perspective that we've been doing well by limiting expenses, and is there one particular area that you see that has made a positive change in that way?
Well, I think overall, if we look at the surplus that the students' union is kind of achieving each year, it seems kind of like a significant growth. Like even just looking, I'm trying to go back to the income statement. Last year was about 1.7 and this year is about 2.6. So a pretty significant increase. Obviously, a portion of that is driven by the revenues, but also kind of, any cost saving metrics from an expense standpoint as well.
Thank you.
Does anyone else online have any questions? I think we're good. I don't have any questions for myself.
Okay, so maybe I'll pass it over to Matt just to speak about things from an audit standpoint.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. And sorry, I was a couple of minutes behind. I had a challenge getting connected. Usually it works just fine, but anyways, I apologize for that. Anyways, thanks for walking through the statements. A couple of things from the perspective of the audit. So the statements you have before you are, a snapshot of the financial position of the organization at the end of April, but your activities throughout the year. So this is a good sort of picture of how things have turned out. Our job is to make sure that what is reflected in these numbers is, consistent with what actually happened, right? And so in our audit opinion that is in the draft statements, we do say that, these financial statements effectively reflect accurately, the financial position as well as the results from operations for the past year. As part of our audit, we do a number of things. We check balances, we inspect certain invoices and other transactions to make sure things have been recorded properly. One of the things that we also do is if we do identify things that need to be adjusted in those statements, we'll evaluate whether or not they should be adjusted and make those corrections as necessary. I think it's important to note that we didn't have significant adjustments or corrections to these statements. And so what that means is that the information that we received was already reflective of the actual activity for the year. And that would mean that the board can take from that information that it's working from good information. And so while, yes, it's, assurance over information at a point in time, it also speaks to the overall sort of integrity of the accounts and how they're generally pulled together. So, we want to thank, Chris and the rest of his team for, their assistance in providing us with the information and the ongoing assistance throughout. And with that, I'll just sort of pause again, see if there's any other sort of questions about the statements or about our work.
Yeah, I think we're seeing what we're looking at online, so I think we're good.
Okay, so I think at this point, we just need to have the financial statements approved, and then we'll be in a position to wrap everything up. Chris, I don't know if there's a motion that's already been prepared.
So Matt, part of the issue tonight is that I'm not sure that there's quorum.
Okay.
So it will have to go, the group that are here tonight will take this to the board meeting. I'm not sure when that is, in a week or a couple of weeks, and then they'll do the vote there. 2 weeks, so, yeah.
So typically what would happen in this situation is the group that's meeting today would pass a resolution, recommending the approval of the statements. It's non-binding, of course, but it does document that we've had this discussion.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
And we'll await the final approval when that time comes.
Perfect. Yeah, we know. Just need okay. All right. So I'll make a note of the recommendation that this director.
Yes, you can do a straw poll in terms of whether the existing directors are in favor and take the results of the straw poll.
Okay. So like
It'd be a vote.
It's an unofficial, non-binding vote.
Yeah.
okay. I don't need one. So if the director's online, and then let's see you here. I guess if you guys could raise your hand if you approve the financial statements. For now, like if your vote is to approve them.
Six, somebody else.
Yeah, there should be, there's 2 more directors online. You guys vote to approve or not? Yeah, that's fine.
They're both their hands over here. There's 4 on.
There's 4 more though.
I do not get it.
Julia and Noah. Are they still?
They're still on.
Oh,
Well,
okay. Oh, and Julia and then just Noah. Oh, that's okay. so we got 7 votes to approve them. And we'll present our recommendation at next board meeting, which is on November 18th.
Okay, great. I think that's it for us. Chris, is there anything more or should we check out now?
Yeah, I think you're good. Thank you, Matt and Sarah, for the work this year, and we will be in touch when we get the final approval.
Super. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
All right.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, you would be able to do, yes, you could still have the PE.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, so we can move on, like, my comments. Yeah. I don't have that many comments to say. The only thing I would say is that, do you guys want to have a board meeting for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. For the directors online, we're gonna have a board meeting at Wells, or a board dinner, sorry, after the next meeting at Wells. So, be there. I should go. I know. I don't know how long. It will be. Okay. Next, comments from the president and CEO.
Hello. So I have Ben's note. He met with the president, provost, and VP student affairs to get an update on the future plans for the student affairs at Laurier. As follow-up to that meeting, a search for the next VP student affairs is set to begin shortly, and we will begin renegotiating the student affairs administrative agreement this week. The government and stakeholder relations team attended USA General Assembly, and just wanted to give a shout out to all the amazing delegates and the author team, and all of the policy papers were passed. Ben attended the October SAC meeting for budget priorities and stop laughing. Budget priorities and budget priorities have been established for the 2025-2026 year for student affairs. We are planning the 2025 student executive hiring. It's underway, job postings and all that fun stuff. And then the programming team in Waterloo is working with athletics to prep for the Yates Cup game, which is coming up this Saturday. So, Yates football. That's all from Ben.
Who was the previous person here? Is that one?
So right now, the acting is David McMurray.
Okay.
Before him was Ivan Joseph, and before Ivan was David McMurray, the first act.
So, David, I guess he can still apply for the permanent position, is that? Or so much.
I would be shocked if he applied.
Okay.
The intention is to do an external search and try to find somebody either from within or from without to bring in.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, how long does like a search like that take and resource wise, what does that look like?
Yeah, good. So for the Students' Union, our resources are the 2 delegates that'll be on the committee. So Sarah Hudson and Ben Jesso will sit on there as undergraduate representatives. Typically, it all depends on how they do it. So I don't 100% know how they're gonna do it this particular time. But if there's an external executive search firm that's hired, that's money.
Yeah.
And then that committee is usually pretty large because it's a vice president position, which is a lot of human resource money. And usually, it'll take several months for it to get to a successful search and ultimately have somebody hired in place. I would imagine the goal is to have somebody as close to spring, summer as possible in the office. And I would imagine that David will stay on until that person is hired and probably switch to some sort of mentor type role for the first couple of months to kind of bring that up to speed.
Are external search firms usually used in this sort of situation or?
For senior level administration, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Does anyone else have any questions? Michelle? All right, Bill?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of comments to add. Ben's are very thorough and kind of comprise most of what I would have said anyways. I also thought that we'd be here much later. I thought that audit would go much longer, so I don't have a ton to add. Literally, you touched on everything that I would. Tickets for the Yates Cup are on sale now. There is a limited number of student tickets available. So if you want to go, I highly recommend you go for the very affordable price of $10 a ticket. Doesn't mean students can't go after those tickets are sold out. It just means you gotta pay the old man price of $30 a ticket. Should be a very exciting game against the heated rival Western Show Ponies. And yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We have our bar service at the football game as we've had for years and years and years. We're aiming to have kind of a festivity before the game in the parking lot just beneath the Indigenous Center. So there should be lots of activities from late morning continuing on through middle afternoon. So we're really excited. We'll also be open at 11 a.m. that day for anybody who wants to go in for lunch for the game.
I have a very unrelated question and that I should have asked before in the finance report, and I don't know if it's an answer that you know anything about or could be found. Looking at the health and dental part of revenue, because I just remember, like, I remember me in second year, I forgot to opt out. I know a lot of people forgot to opt out.
You intentionally stayed in the plan because it was a value to you as an undergraduate student, yes, I understand.
Well, unfortunately, it wasn't.
I'm just kidding.
But I'm just curious. I mean, I guess you could know about like accounts that have made claims and not, because most people would. How much revenue, if there's a figure of those of just like forgot to opt out, that just like.
So I don't have that ready at my fingertips, but we can for sure get you those types of answers for the next meeting if you want.
Right, because I don't know, I know from a lot of people.
Yep.
Accidentally opt out. It can also be, if you have other insurance, you can claim insurance fraud.
Yeah.
So I think that might be an issue that maybe some people might not know about. I know it would generate less revenue, but I still just like an ethical thing, don't commit insurance fraud. Don't need to. As in like have multiple insurances that you don't know about.
Yeah, you can definitely coordinate benefits if you have access to multiple.
Yeah. But I'm saying in some cases, people might not necessarily,
Yes. I would push back just a little bit because the onus is like we communicate pretty heavily with students to let them know. Do they know? I can honestly tell you the answer is not all of them do.
Right.
I was one of those students when I was an undergraduate student. But yeah, we can provide you with unique users for sure.
Yeah. That was a little aggressive, I do agree.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And it is a bit of a concern because if there is a surplus that's being made. We made some pretty significant financial changes to the plan a number of years ago. Specifically, the main driver of that was oral contraception. And those numbers haven't taken off quite the way that we thought that they would, because our wellness experts kind of provided us with some data that it was an emergency type level need. And we worked really diligently to kind of get those changes made so that that plan wouldn't be bankrupted. Because at that time, the health and dental plan wasn't in the surplus position that it finds itself in now. But those numbers haven't quite skyrocketed the way that we expected. It has been a steady increase over the 3 or 4 years that it's happened. I'll say 3 years. We're in the 4th year now, but it's just nowhere near what we thought it was. So there definitely needs to be a conversation about that as we move forward. As it stands, the health and dental plan is up for renewal this year. And so we're in the process of doing an RFP with very selected kind of providers to kind of do a better plan for undergraduate students and try to sort that stuff out. That'll be a variable that we'll have to take into consideration when we go out to tender.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider doing like an opt-in?
So that would become very financially unstable and very difficult to kind of budget on. So it would be operationally not a wise choice.
We don't know that you have to opt out, you also wouldn't know you have to opt in.
Yeah.
A lot of people can talk to us.
But I think that there's available on the insurance.
Most people don't think about insurance until they need it, and by then it's usually too
That's
late.
true. Vice Chair Hatzmichael, you have your hand up. Do you have a question or?
I do have to update that, sorry?
I had a question, but I don't anymore, so we're good now.
Okay, on the flip side, the cameras are up, fully operational, ICT has officially given them the green light, there's only one in this room, it's right there. So the security cameras in the FNCC, that problem took care of itself almost shortly after we had the conversation a couple of weeks ago. I feel like there was another one that stuck, but I can't. What's that? Vehicles. Yes. The vans are officially have been replaced. We have the new vans on both campuses. They are unmarked silver Foxes. They're silver Honda Odysseys. They're beautiful, modern technology. They're wonderful. They don't quite smell like foot yet. So I'm home. But we're very excited. They have all the safety features. Yeah, we're very happy.
Yeah. Were you gonna say the sticker?
Yeah, you gonna put the logo on it?
So right now, we're gonna have magnets on it when they're being used, so that we know that it's a student's union vehicle, and anybody who's using it for the hawk walk service will recognize that that's not an illegitimate van picking them up for a ride. And then operationally, we'll have to sit down and decide whether or not we want to fully deckle them the way that we had the last vans done. I personally lean towards not doing it that way. I think that there is a more subtle and classy way to do it. I just don't know what that looks like right now. But yeah, that ultimately we would like to have them identifiable, just maybe not as in your face as they were.
This is a very random, unrelated question, but I remember a few meetings back, we were talking about the AC that connects all these buildings. Is it the same like situation with the AC in the library?
So it all feeds, yes, they're a part of that same system.
So it's library's part of that?
Correct.
Right, cause the library has become this sauna. Like I've been seeing people with their shirts off studying cubicles.
I mean, maybe that's just how they feel comfortable studying, I don't know. Sorry for all the stats today. Yeah, so one of the things that I can tell you, I've been on this campus for a very long time. These buildings are all kind of built in the 50s and 60s. The 60s is the era that we'll kind of focus on. They are very, very challenging to maintain any kind of comfortable temperature. I know that because the library is for all intents and purposes, 7 days a week, it's not 24 hours. But so the heat is kind of pumping no matter what.
Yeah, cause out of all of them, I noticed the library was the worst.
Okay. I can definitely use that feedback and pass it on to facilities asset management, although I guarantee you, if it's as hot as you say, they know. They know.
I have a question about, does the students union like are bookings for the tour run through the students union?
Correct, yep.
Is that how it works?
Yep.
So, just because I was talking to a couple of students who had a club and they had an event in the Hawks Nest. Is there a reason why the price is, it's like the price it is? I think it was like $200 for them to rent it, plus they had to pay a cleaning fee, but then to clean it up themselves. It's kind of like,
So if they have issues with the pricing, they can definitely have a conversation with the clubs department, with Alia and Jason in that particular group. The pricing is set up, oh, Mr. Lee, but the prices is set up so that, like right now, that room, it loses money if we book a group and don't charge them. So it's, but we're not in the business of making profit off student clubs. It's all about break-even costs.
just, okay, yeah, just because also like the cleaning person. Shut up, lady, it was a pretty good.
Okay.
I don't know who that person is.
So if that sounds like active and really good feedback to have, I personally have lots of feedback to the custodial program inside this building. I have pretty frequent conversations with Lindsay, who is our facilities person that is the communicator with all things custodial. We have lots of difficulty, for example, in the private bathroom suites on this floor with students being, for whatever reason, really angry in the bathrooms and tearing things off the wall and, you know, plugging toilets, etc. The stairwells don't get cleaned. So there's lots of things. So what I would encourage anybody who books anything inside our facilities, if they have feedback like that, we need to hear that so that we can talk to custodial and get those things corrected. Because if there are concerns, we need to know.
Yeah, okay. Does anyone have any questions for Phil?
get ballpark a number to just tear down every sixties building and rebuild in 1 year. What would that be, ballpark?
Like. Like north of $100 million, like easily.
Easy. That's all.
We just need like one big number.
But also for that 1 year, there would probably be almost no buildings on this campus.
We'll just go to the building.
Everybody will squeeze it to last.
We'll just plug in the glass.
Squeeze it to last,
Yeah, no problem.
Easy.
All right, we can't do the growth inspection committee election. So we'll move that to next meeting, that's fine. All right. Professional development opportunities, so I know that, some of you guys filled out the questionnaire about the October 7th meeting, and then I also asked a question about what, like training or workshops you want to participate in. So I made a list of the most like popular ones, the ones that were mentioned like more than once. So some examples, so there's conflict management. Could talk about advancement of technology, so how technology can enhance the student experience. Leadership, sustainability workshops, first aid, and then public speaking and networking were the most popular. So I just want to kind of decide on like 1 or 2 topics that we can look into to like actually get some options for like workshops and stuff. So out of these options, which ones do you guys have any like strong preferences that you would want to do? No.
It just adjusts like.
Yeah, I guess they're not mandatory, we just have the budget. So it's.
I'm okay with it. Leadership?
I mean, like, I think there was like 7 or 8 people who like filled it out, so if you guys just filled it out to fill it out and you don't actually wanna do it, we don't have to use the money up. But last year we didn't use it up, and there was some regret at the end of the year, I think. So,
I like the advancing technology, that'd be like AI stuff.
mhm,
That would be interesting. That'd be actually be interesting.
Although maybe more work to do, but I feel like people like myself would be more inclined to pick an option and to actually do something. If an option and opportunity, like how it would be done, what
Okay, so
is
you're already-
provided,
okay,
instead of just like, it's like I can learn anything, I can learn about AI, I can learn about networking, whatever, but like. I think myself and other people might feel more gravitated towards something like tangible that they can see, is like, oh, I'd like to learn this in this way. This
Okay,
person at this
so
time.
then what, do you have any like, how you would like to learn it? Like, do you want someone to come and speak to us? Would you like to do like, like course? Like an interactive?
Well, I think it's easy to ask what's been done in the past and what methods of delivery.
So the last time we had anybody external come and do stuff for the board, it was all like governance coaching type stuff. So we had somebody who was a policy governance kind of expert, she literally wrote the book, or a book on it anyways. And she kind of came and walked the board through that type of training. So we could do that, we could do kind of next level training, because we kind of have a pretty good idea of the basic function of policy governance. We've done EDI training. We've tried to do some Indigenous learning, including last year, we chatted with Mo about the idea of doing unique land acknowledgements that are a little bit more personal and intentional, rather than the script that we've been reading for what feels like forever at this point. So there's lots of those types of options that we can explore. Beyond that, I don't know if Ian, you have any thoughts and or suggestions? Just as one.
Thanks.
I feel like there are certainly courses you can do individually, like if you're interested in different types of leadership or things that are career oriented. So there are like one-off courses if it's more dispersed and it's like a directors want to do something. Whether it's like continuing education or Laurier, there are lots of other institutions that offer stuff where you, whether it's a module or a couple sessions. So kind of depends, I think the key piece is, do you want to just collectively, or do you want individual opportunities for those who are serious?
Yeah, I think. I don't know, personally, I feel like I'd be fine with just someone coming in and doing the presentation. Which like one guy is doing time, just so we get to be good, but working on something that.
That's your dinner to it, so.
I can put together some options and send them to you to send around with her.
I think it'd be cool, so, I don't know if it's a thing to talk about like interviews, like how to talk, like an interview, answer questions, professional speaking. I think that's pretty relevant to also, right?
We can do that, sure. Those guys will probably be chomping at the bit for that type of stuff. And maybe what we can do is customize it to talk about how we can kind of customize it to the board experience. So you guys can translate, A, what you've been doing and how it fits in your resume, but B, then how to talk about it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I like
for
that.
sure.
And yeah, this will be like next semester, I think.
Yeah, we can definitely work with career and get that sorted out.
Okay,
There, in a weird twist, part of the new student affairs vision is to bring career back into the fold with student affairs, so they'll be chomping at the bit to all of
yeah, we could get like, we could even get food in the boardroom, like, we could get like roasted food.
Sorry, food's not allowed. I just really want to extend this meeting's lines, but appreciate it.
Yeah, like. Does anyone?
Paying for parking.
Oh, you're gonna time limit here?
No, it's
You
not.
can leave it everywhere. Does anyone online have anything to say? Is this something that you'd be interested in learning about, like professional speaking and interview techniques and? You know, something is really about it, so. I don't know what it says.
All of the above.
Oh, yeah, that's not.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, do we have to vote on this? No? Then I say let's go ahead with that plan.
Okay,
Career Center.
we will take steps to put that together. And you want it to be next semester?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Trump.
no, I think I have evening class next semester, a couple nights a week, so. Alright, sounds good. And yeah, once we get like the actual meeting schedule, then, I don't know how like advanced planning you guys do. So,
I think we can work with the building the content first and then finally pay it. That shouldn't be too hard.
okay. Yeah, and then I'll get the like figuring stuff. Great, so we can include it in. But that whole. Okay. And rotators this. Why are you laughing? Okay, last thing, ownership linkage booth. That's happening tomorrow. Yes,
I have class from 1 to 4, so I can propose 12:30 to 1.
yeah.
Alright.
Daniel, are you gonna do that?
Yeah, I'm gonna be there in the morning.
It's not gonna be much.
I mean, not the morning, the early part of the afternoon.
Okay.
But- Okay.
I'll be there pretty much full time probably, and who's going to be there.
Right.
And I know on this as well.
Cool, that's me. If you got snacks.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I got lots of gummies.
Great.
And I also have like the chocolate and so much Christmas cookies.
Great.
Oh, yeah, I want to do that. Can we get a tablecloth? And,
Up to the office.
perfect. And then also, I know this one has like a spinning wheel.
Yep.
Can we use a spinning wheel?
I think that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
When
Is it
you're
like
doing it tomorrow, what time?
12:30 to 4:15.
Yeah, can we just, is it GSRs or is it Phyllis? Sarah will take care of it.
I'll connect with them until then.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll just pick it up before. I'll pick up the tablecloth before. So, when you go on lunch?
I'll be around.
Okay, you can also just leave it at the.
Yeah.
I'll like pick it up at like 12:15 maybe. I don't really know how it works, like if they set up the tables. Did they set them all up in the morning? or-
In the concourse?
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll set the tables up ahead of time,
Okay.
and then they'll put like a little reserved sign on there, and so you know exactly where you're going.
but like they're not gonna set it up right at like 12:30, like it'll be there.
It'll probably be there first thing in the morning, yeah.
Okay, cool. Cause I don't know, you could pick like morning, afternoon, or both, but I was like, I don't wanna pick both and then leave it empty for 4 hours.
Yeah, they have, like your piece of paper with your.
Yeah.
Will be on there,
Okay.
pretty close to right away.
That's what I thought, okay. Perfect. Anyone else in Waterloo? I know, I think it's just Noah on the call. Noah, if you're available tomorrow to come, it would be greatly appreciated.
There's at least.
Yeah, I'd probably be down for that. I just have to check my schedule and stuff. I can let you guys know by tonight.
There's
At
always,
least or something.
all time, but more
Yeah.
people come, if there are more people around,
Yeah.
with more inviting, more,
Yes.
well, to talk to the students.
All right, yeah, that's 12:30 till 4:15. So if you're walking through the concourse during that time, just stop by and then stay for a while. So stay. You can just, anyway, all right, any announcements? I don't think so. Just, yeah, moving tomorrow in the concourse. Oh yeah, the Yates Cup, get your tickets if you haven't. I got my tickets. Yeah, football.
Defeat the show ponies.
All right, action item summary. I guess next meeting, we'll like, talk about the financial statements again, and we also have to do the direct inspection committee election. Other than that, I don't think, oh,
We
the,
also want unique users
Yes.
and LPL plan, which will be able
Yeah,
to provide.
yeah.
I'm gonna send regrets for that meeting, but we will make sure that that number's here, and then we also need a spinning wheel for tomorrow.
yes, but that's Ian's to do.
Just saying.
Okay. I guess that's it, so I have to change. All right, so can I get a motion that the board of directors adjourn the November 4th, 2024? Oh, we can't even vote.
I can do a show motion, just.
Well, this is a motion that the board of directors adjourn the November 4th, 2024 meeting, and I think everyone's in favor.
Yes.
So,
My favorite was when we were in camera and lost quorum one time, and they're like, can we vote to get out of quorum?